Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and this show is called Take This Bread. This is the show of the Good Neighbor Food Pantry, and we're going to talk about nutrition this evening. We have a guest from Woodstock Apothecary, and we are going to discuss the best way for us to stay healthy in the food realm. Because you know, most of the people who come to the food pantry don't have health insurance.
Yeah.
And the food that they eat is extremely important. It takes on, when you don't have health insurance, food takes on a whole different layer to it. So I'd like to start off by telling, first of all, that a couple of weeks ago, I went over and I saw you. I took all my vitamins over and I said, you know, what works and what doesn't. And I was just blown away when the first thing that I heard was, well, you can get rid of this vitamin totally, and what you should eat every day is blueberries. So we got rid of a vitamin completely and substituted with that with food. How does that work?
Well, what people don't realize when they go to the store and buy a vitamin is that they're not they think they're buying a ground up orange or some ground up blueberries, but in 99% of the case, they're getting an isolated synthetic chemical. For example, there's a lot of people in the supplement industry that don't want people to know this, but 99% of all vitamin C is actually made from corn in China. There's no food involved, yet these companies stick pictures of oranges and lemons on the label, and it always makes me laugh because that didn't come from a farm, it came from a chemical factory in China.
Wow. Is there anything on the label of a vitamin that says it's made in China?
No. Companies don't have to list because of poor regulation by the FDA of the supplement industry. They don't have to list where their chemicals come from. But that is focused on the wrong thing. We should be focused on the fact that vitamins are attached to specific cofactors in food. So when we eat food, we're getting so much more than the vitamin. I mean, an orange has over 10,000 constituents that we've found just so far. So we're not getting those other 9,900 compounds. The man who discovered ascorbic acid, he won the Nobel Prize. His name was Dr. Albert Spence Georgi. He was treating scurvy patients. He gave one group paprika peppers and another group the isolated ascorbic acid that people buy and think is vitamin C. The paprika pepper group got better much faster and did very well, whereas the plain ascorbic acid group did very poorly and took much longer to recover from scurvy. To treat scurvy, you need several thousand milligrams of ascorbic acid, whereas you can treat it with a couple drops of lime juice, which only contain 5 milligrams of vitamin C, but contain all those other cofactors.
Wow. So the next time we're coming down with a cold, we should
eat oranges. Don't buy orange juice. What people don't know about commercial orange juice is oranges aren't in season all year round. Orange juice companies juice a whole bunch of oranges, keep them in a tank for a year, up to a year. It's then this waterless, tasteless fluid. And then they add a flavor pack to it, which is an assortment of chemicals and synthetic ingredients that they don't have to list on the label to give it its taste. It has zero nutritional value. It's just flavored water. So this is what I always try to get across, eat an orange. Eat some berries.
Okay, so the next time that I think that I need vitamin C, what I'm going to do is go for an orange.
Go for an orange, yeah.
Would a lemon substitute as well?
Absolutely. It could be any fruit or food. For example, red peppers have lots of vitamin C. Broccoli has lots of vitamin C. Broccoli also helps to prevent you against certain cancers like breast cancer and colon cancer. So not only are you getting that vitamin C, but you're getting other benefits too.
So what about these powders?
The most famous, I can't really say brands on the air, but there's the most famous brand of powdered vitamin C that people buy in little packets and they mix it with water and then they drink it. Let's talk about what goes into making that. Fructose made from corn. People think of fructose as fruit sugar, but almost all the fructose that people buy is made from corn in China. You then have that same vitamin C from corn, but how they make that buffered or easy on the stomach is they take that ascorbic acid and they react it with calcium carbonate or chalk. So you get calcium ascorbate. So there's no lemons or limes or oranges involved in the making of this vitamin C, even though they stick pictures of oranges and things like that on the label.
Okay, so the next time we're coming down with something, we don't go get a pill. we go and hopefully get,
We go to Sunfrost and we get some whole, real fruits.
okay. And if you can't get fruit, then you go for broccoli.
If you go for broccoli, red peppers. I mean, there are companies that make whole food vitamin C tablets, and while they're good, you can never get the same benefits as a fresh food.
What about these packages and capsules and bottles of the dried greens?
So those can be good, but there's a number of things that need to be taken into account. The drying method. For example, spinach that's dried, if you freeze dry it, you lose over 50% of the antioxidant capacity of the spinach. So the drying method is very important. A lot of companies don't dry these things properly. A lot of times the powdered greens have sat in a warehouse in China for a year. So there's a lot of things that go into it that people really don't know. So brand matters. They can also be very high in lead. So there's all these things that go on that have to be taken into account.
So you can get lead poisoning from vitamins?
You won't necessarily get lead poisoning, but it's unnecessary exposure. If I can buy one brand that has never failed testing for lead or another brand that consistently fails testing, that's what we call unnecessary exposure. So then by the time you add up the vitamins, the small amount found in foods normally and so forth, and some people take 6, 7, 8 supplements, if all of them together and each of them were contaminated, then you have an issue.
Are there any foods that you think people should eat every day?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, what are they?
Dark cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, kale, Swiss chard, collards. There's kind of like this raw food thing going on where people think they have to eat everything raw or juice it all. But in fact, those vegetables, you get more benefit from them when you steam them and eat them with a little olive oil. The fat helps you to absorb the carotenoids and other beneficial compounds better. So the best, healthiest way is to actually steam them.
I have also read that the best way to eat tomatoes is cooked.
Mm-hmm. Like in pasta sauce, for example. Cooked tomatoes with olive oil. Carotenoids are much better absorbed with fat. There's actually a great book out called Extra Virgin, and it's about the scandal going on in the olive oil industry. People are buying olive oil, but usually they're getting vegetable oils, hazelnut oil, or other oils diluted into it. So there's a great company called the California Olive Ranch. They get 100% of their olives from California, and there's no risk of the dilution. So I recommend everyone read that book. It's a phenomenal book, and it will really open your eyes. Most of the time when you buy olive oil, you're not getting olive oil. So you should only buy olive oil that's 100% California olive oil.
If the label on the bottle says that it's olive oil and it's cold press and it comes from Sicily or Spain or Italy, is that true or not?
A lot of times not. I would really encourage everyone to read this book. A lot of times it's not. It's diluted with hazelnut oil. There's a huge scandal. It's actually been said that the profit you make from falsifying olive oil, like adding other oils, is equivalent to what you would make selling cocaine. So there's a huge amount of money to be made.
And are there any brands that are safer than others?
The California Olive Ranch, you can get it in every single supermarket. And it's
wow.
actually less expensive than a lot of the oils coming from Europe.
Well, because it's California. It doesn't come from another country.
Yep, and then we're also supporting our economy.
Right.
We are having a struggling economy, so when we can support people here, it's better. So we're getting a better product, we're paying less, and we're helping our economy.
Right, so we should eat olives, drink olive oil. And while we're talking about olive oil, what is a safe cooking oil? I know that I did some research a couple of 3 years ago. That was very confusing to me. I finally came out of, after reading all of these articles and books and things, and realized that oil isn't safe.
Some oils aren't. Olive oil you can do low temperature. There are other oils that are better for high temperature. For example, if you take a little olive oil and you mix it with butter, it will let you heat it a little higher without burning. But you can also use extra virgin coconut oil. That's a very safe fat to cook with, and you can heat that to a high temperature.
Oh, really? Now, for some reason, I have in my mind that coconut oil is very high in cholesterol.
Coconut oil doesn't have any cholesterol, but it does have a fair amount of saturated fat. In the 1950s, there were some bad studies done where they took partially hydrogenated coconut oil and fed it to rats. We now know that there's a huge difference between partially hydrogenated oil and non-partially hydrogenated oil. So coconut oil is completely safe. There's no risk of clogging your arteries or any of that.
Because it's a vegetable.
It's not partially hydrogenated. Ansel Keys, the man who is responsible for the fat will kill you, fat will give you a heart attack, his study was completely flawed. Initially, he surveyed 16 countries. 6 supported his hypothesis that fat will give you a heart attack. 10 did not. So he just left those 10 out. I mean, that is an example of terrible science.
Yes.
Science is very important, and it's the only way we really learn things, but we have to always be on the lookout for bad science.
So people need to, what should people eat for breakfast?
Mm-hmm. So it depends. Eggs are a great breakfast. For example, I can go to Snyder's Farm in Saugerties, buy pastured eggs, so eggs that run around, chickens that run around outside and eat bugs and grubs and whatever it is that chickens eat. And their eggs are very rich in vitamins. They're rich in lecithin, DHA, which is good for your brain, lutein, which is good for your eyes. So 2 omega-3 eggs with some sauteed spinach, like a Western omelet kind of thing. Some other examples, some people like steel-cut oatmeal. That's a good breakfast. You can put some almonds in it and some fruit. You know, now it's almost the time where at the ice caves in Ellenville, the entire mountain is covered with wild blueberries. So you can go pick a whole bunch for free and freeze them. So that ties into our really healthy eating and low cost. Literally, those blueberries will cost you nothing. You can go to the health food store and just get steel-cut oats out of the bin. Cost you very little. Like I said, a dozen eggs from Snyder's is like $3. That's really cheap, really healthy, affordable protein.
I'm of the mind that eggs are one of the most reasonable foods to eat, and that yogurt is also reasonable.
Mm-hmm. But people with yogurt, we want to buy plain yogurt. People buy these flavored yogurts. Like one little flavored of the most popular natural brand has 6 tablespoons of sugar in it. That's more sugar than we need in the entire day. So buy plain yogurt. There's great brands. There's Hawthorne Valley Farm, which is a local pasture-based farm in Ghent. There's Ronnybrook Farm, which is in Red Hook. Those are great farms that make pastured yogurts. There's 7 Stars, Butternut. So there's a lot of good companies making pastured yogurts that are not very expensive. And grass-fed dairy products are rich in a natural form of CLA that prevents breast cancer. They're rich in calcium, carotenoids, vitamin D, vitamin A. So they have a lot of nutritional value. Cows are supposed to eat grass, so we want to support farmers where the cows actually eat grass.
Right, because yes, and they're not locked up in cages and things.
Exactly. There are so many great local farms around here. I encourage people to get to know your farmer. We have the farmers market here in Woodstock. You can meet the farmers, you can talk to them, you can ask questions. There's a CSA in Silpas called Veritas Farms. Paul and Stephanie are wonderful. You can go to the farm, pet the animals, see how they do things. There are so many amazing farmers around here really working at producing truly organic food. Not like the #1 seller of organic lettuce in the U.S. grows their organic lettuce right next to the non-organic lettuce. And that's not organic. And then it's shipped from California, or we get strawberries from Chile. I'll take a local non-organic strawberry over an organic strawberry from Chile any day of the week. There's actually a great project called Hudson Valley Harvest. It's hv-harvest.com. They take local produce, they blanch it, clean it, and then they freeze it. And then they sell it to supermarkets like Adams and things like that. So you can get local, even frozen vegetables in the winter. So there's so many great farmers doing so many things around here. My #1 step to be healthy is get to know your local farmer.
One of the things that we did when we moved up here is I went to the different grocery stores and checked out their waters. Mm-hmm. And when you read the labels on the water bottle, then you figure out where the spring is. Mm-hmm. And we took a couple of trips out, looking to see where the water comes mm-hmm. from. Not that seeing where it comes from tells you anything about the quality, but we were able to see where the water came from, and it was a fascinating thing. And mm-hmm. of course, going to see where the farm is incredible, because mm-hmm. people don't do that anymore. Yep. They have no clue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people they think that meat is this styrofoam package that they buy in the store. They have absolutely no idea what's actually going on. And the only way to know is to visit your farmer. Most of them are so nice. They love it when people come visit. Supporting a CSA is a great way to support the local economy. Plus, you get tons of great produce, and you pay very little for it.
Right.
Farmers markets are really, really cheap ways to get a lot of good nutrition. I mean, and some of it you should blanch and you should freeze and save it for the winter. That way you have really good, nutritious food all through the winter. Canning was a practice that people used to do a lot more, that preserved food, and it's good. More people should do it. You get food much cheaper and much healthier.
Are you a vegetarian?
I'm not.
You are not?
No.
I definitely am.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Any diet can be healthy, besides some of the crazy fat diets like the cabbage soup diet or whatnot. What people tend to be focused on the wrong thing. Being vegetarian is fine. Eating, less carbs is fine. Eating less fat is fine. But what we need to be asking ourselves is, am I eating real food? That's what people need to be focused on. Not is it organic, or is it low carb, or is it paleo, or is it real?
Going back to when I first came here, when I first moved here, it's been a number of years, but I spent probably 2 to 3 years taking classes at SUNY Ulster in Kingston, because there were just all kinds of things, and I felt like this was a way for me to get into the community. And there was a woman who taught a class in nutrition, and I got drummed out of the core there. She kept talking about nutrition. There was not a food served, prepared, discussed for like several weeks. We met for like 2 hours at a shop for like 5 weeks. There wasn't a food there. And when I made a remark about it, she came over and quietly said, I did not appreciate that crack you made. I said, well, where's the food, guys?
Exactly.
So finding real food can be a challenge. And when you talk to the people who do a lot of couponing, everything they get is processed, which is scary.
If they took, some of these people spend like 6 to 8 hours a week couponing. If they went to the farmer's market, got a bunch of fresh produce, canned it, froze it, they would spend the same amount of money, but they would be getting real food. And so we make choices. And so they're choosing couponing for fake food instead of more time in the kitchen. If you want to be healthy, you have to use your kitchen. That is just the way it is. People don't want to take responsibility for their health, for the most part. They're completely focused on the wrong thing. Like I said, the 6 hours a week that they spend cutting coupons out of the newspaper, they could be canning and freezing local fresh produce. Hell, they could grow a garden, and then it's free.
Yes. What about raw food? What is the deal with that?
So raw food is kind of becoming its own kind of thing now. It's food that's not heated over 108 degrees or 112 degrees or 104, depending on which raw food you talk about. These are people that believe that all of our food should be eaten raw because it contains enzymes which will heal our body and things like that. There's nothing wrong with eating real food, but it's kind of a simplistic model, and it kind of ignores physiology. Because enzymes, when we take them, they're destroyed in the digestive tract. So they're not going into our bloodstream and doing things. But it's good to eat some raw food and some cooked food. And if you want to be a raw foodie, that's fine. The issue with certain raw foods is you have to make sure that they're consuming enough protein and zinc and B12. That's some of the common deficiencies that raw foodies. But some raw sources of zinc, for example, are pumpkin seeds. So you just eat raw pumpkin seeds and then you can get enough zinc. Protein can be supplied by nuts, for example. So there are ways to do any diet healthfully. But all of these people, they have their niche. The raw foodies hate people that cook food. The vegans hate the people that eat animal products. The paleo people hate the people that eat carbohydrates. Instead of coming together and saying, hey, let's work together. Let's work together to get the crap out of our food supply. Let's work together to get genetically modified food out of the food supply. They all just want to quarrel with each other when they agree on like 80% of the same thing, but they spend all their time fighting instead of working towards a goal.
The question I have, and I really haven't delved into it deeply enough because I haven't met that many people, is a person who, or a group of people who have been doing raw food for a long time. I am curious to know how their bodies age.
It depends. Just like a lot of aging has to do with genetics, it's about, you know, our lifestyle choices besides diet, stress, how much stress we have, the environment we live in, you know, things. So there are other things, but you can have raw foodies that live for a long time. You can have raw foodies that live for a short time. You can have vegans that live for a long time, meat eaters that live for a long time, and in those same categories, people that die very soon. It's not, you can't really make a correlation like that. It's very much individual, because like there are, I call them potato chip vegans. They're vegans that live entirely on chips and starch. And they're not healthier than the guy that's eating, even if it's bad, poor quality meat, they're no healthier than him. So it really, you know, the healthiest diet is to eat a variety of food, lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, good fat, and good protein, and we need carbohydrates. So the best sources of carbohydrates are nuts, seeds, beans, and vegetables. And so we need carbohydrates. There's all these groups, they want to eliminate like one macronutrient, but our bodies need all three. We just want to make good choices in the groups. And again, you can be vegetarian, you can be vegan, you can be raw, you can eat meat. It's, are you eating real food? And that's what it comes down to. Any diet can be healthy, any diet can be unhealthy. Like, well, except for like the cabbage soup diet and things like that. They can never be healthy. Those people just eat cabbage soup and nothing else. So any diet that incorporates a wide variety of healthy, real food can be healthy.
You know, talking about genetics, there are a lot of people in this area that live a long time. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people way in their, to their 90s. Mm-hmm. And my observation genetically is that these are Italians and Sicilians, which leads me to believe that possibly the Mediterranean diet has some validity.
Well, what we think of as the Mediterranean diet is not at all what's actually eaten there. So that needs to kind of be thrown out the window. While consuming a large variety of plants and some whole grains is good for you, in Greece they eat tons of lamb, which is a very fatty meat.
Yes.
In Italy they eat tons of seafood. So it really depends on the area. All the areas of the Mediterranean eat differently. The Greeks also eat a lot of cheese, like feta cheese, for example. So you can't, people are always trying to lump things together. What the Mediterranean population though has in common is they work less than us. They have a much more leisurely lifestyle. Their meals take hours. We shove food down our throat and run. Nobody actually sits down and eats and chews their food. And they eat with family and friends. And so there's a lifestyle component to it. It's not just what they're eating, but their food is fresher. They eat less processed food than we do. So there's so many things that come into play. And like I said, each country in that Mediterranean area eats differently.
They also have food that doesn't have artificial coloring and artificial flavor to it. I mean, the food really is real.
It's real. Like the fish is caught that day and then they buy it in the market. They go grocery shopping every day. Most of the produce you get in the supermarket comes from all the way across the country. It's picked unripe and then gassed. But when you get strawberries from Gill's farm, they pick them ripe and then you buy them and then you eat them. And the nutritional value is far higher than that organic strawberry you got that was picked unripe. And so the nutritional density of our food is very poor for the most part. So there's all of these things that come into play. It's not a simple issue.
Well, and of course, as we get older, we all have biases. I have developed a real bias against anything from Latin America. I lived in 2 countries in Latin America, and based on that experience, you can't believe anything that those people say. If there's $1 to be made and you can put it on the side of a box, and what has been poured on the chemicals that have been poured on those foods, we have no idea. I mean, there isn't much control in this country, but there's none out of this country, I believe.
Well, I mean, that is an issue, but again, we all develop biases. You can list 100 things from Latin America that they do bad to their food. I could list 100 things that we do here that's bad to our food. So it tends to be a
What are some of the worst things we do to our food here?
Well, the picking it not right. The the thinking that our food is organic when most organic food is made by Pepsi and Coca-Cola and those big corporations. Genetically modified foods are horrible. And in so that the sense that we haven't properly tested them. Monsanto, if let's say I am a farmer and I've been growing corn for all these years, I save seeds, blah, 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 I grow corn, it's nice. If the farmer down the road uses Monsanto seeds and they pollinate and they end up in my corn through no fault of my own, Monsanto can sue me and I can lose my farm, even though I didn't do anything wrong. So the non-regulation of genetically modified foods is absolutely horrible, and that needs to change. People have a right to know what they're eating. Those foods need to be labeled. I mean, you're taking the genes of other things and inserting it in like a tomato. Farmers are losing thousands and millions of dollars every year because of this, because they don't, they're not allowed to save their seeds. They have to buy them every year, even though in the past they would be saving their seeds. I mean, there's in the news, hundreds of farmers in India committed suicide because of what happened because of Monsanto. So we need to get that under control. So some of the pesticides we use, not all of them, like we're one of the last countries that allow this certain pesticide on tomato, the last industrial country to allow that. Europe has banned it. It's highly toxic chemical. So we use that on our tomatoes. Our agriculture processes, we just use tons and tons of pesticides over and over again, when instead of growing a different amount of crops in an area, instead of growing 1 million acres of corn, let's grow things together. That reduces pests, it reduces the amount of pesticides needed, things like that.
It's just changes that people don't have the time or the energy to make.
And part of it is in our government. We subsidize wheat, corn, and soy. That's all we subsidize. We should be subsidizing broccoli and cucumbers and things like that, but it's not as profitable. If we just stopped subsidizing wheat, corn, and soy, most of the processed food would become more expensive than the healthy food. That's all we would have to do. Farmers would go back to grazing their animals on grass instead of pumping them full of corn. But we artificially keep the price of corn low by subsidizing it. Corn is... I'm not talking about like Gill's Farm that grows corn and we eat corn on the cob. I'm talking about the corn we put in our gas tanks, high fructose corn syrup, cheese doodles. These are what people eat mostly, soda, cheese doodles.
Yes.
And we put it in our gas tanks. It makes our gas more expensive. It rots our gas tanks. It's horrible. We get less miles to the gallon.
Yeah, we do get less miles to the gallon with ethanol, very definitely.
Yeah, and so we do all of these things. So that's why I say get to know your local farmer. Help them stay in business so all of us can continue to get real food. He's not going to lie to you. You can go to his farm and see what he does.
Yeah.
Sour Farm. That guy's been there a long time. I think he's in his 80s now. He's a really nice guy. They raise eggs. They raise vegetables. He just uses sulfur on his plants. He doesn't use a bunch of pesticides. He doesn't have money for organic, but he does real food. And so support him. You can get produce there that's really cheap, but it's really healthy. And it's far better, like I said, than that organic strawberry from Chile. I hesitate. Food that's picked unripe and then shipped 3,000 miles, there's nothing organic about that.
Right. No, and wouldn't be. What, my question now, I would like to move on a little bit to vitamins, because I was taught that in the space of a day, you need to serve your family all these different food groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure that that's even a viable thing anymore, because I learned that so many years ago that there may have been some changes along the way. Then, in selecting vitamins, I learned, well, you need to take a multivitamin, and then you need to take some oils, and you need to take some different things. But sometimes I ask myself, well, maybe I don't need all the vitamins in that multivitamin. Maybe I need something different. How do you know what you need?
Well, number one, first to getting enough food throughout the day. A serving size of vegetables is only half a cup. A serving of cheese is 1.5 ounces. So the total amount of vegetables you need today, 8 servings of fruit and vegetables a day, that's only 4 cups. That's not actually that much to get in your day. To be truly healthy, 8 servings a day is going to reduce your risk for breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, all of these cancers that we worry about. It's also going to reduce your risk for diabetes, heart disease, stroke, all of these things. And just 4 cups of vegetables a day. That's not that much. That's what people need to realize. 3 to 4 servings of dairy, for example, is what the government recommends. Obviously, if you're vegetarian or don't eat cheese, you wouldn't eat that. But that's only 6 ounces. People will sit down and eat a whole wheel of cheese. I am not advising that in any way. But it's not that hard to get servings. I mean, the government recommends, a ridiculous amount of carbohydrate foods, which we do not, no one needs 6 to 8 servings of white bread. That's ridiculous. So, but getting the vegetables in is not hard. You should have a plate of food, okay? It should be half fruits and vegetables, okay? Maybe 3/4, and some good protein, and then maybe a little like quinoa, for example, or some buckwheat, and then have a garden salad. Or skip the grain and just have 3/4 vegetables, some good protein, and a salad. And you've gotten 4 of your servings in one meal. So it's not that hard. People make it harder than it actually is. And I think that needs to be said. We way overcomplicate things. All these labels on food that people look for, instead of saying, hey, this is broccoli, look at that, it doesn't have any labels, but I know it's good for me. And then they go in the snack food aisle and they're like, oh yes, this organic cookie is way better for me than this. Give me a break. A cookie is a cookie. So, so we need to realize that. People overcomplicate it way too much.
So how do you get it down to the basics?
So you try and have, you should eat, the American Diabetes Association for optimal health and for prevention of diabetes recommends more frequent, smaller portions throughout the day. So a breakfast, a snack, a lunch, a snack, and a dinner. This helps to keep our blood sugar stable, helps to keep us in a better mood, helps us so we don't have that 3 p.m. crash. So for breakfast, so let's say I've had an egg with some spinach, okay? So I've gotten a serving of vegetables in. For my snack, I have some hummus that I made at home using chickpeas, olive oil, salt, pepper, and lemon juice. So I made that for 50 cents, okay? And some vegetables. So then I've got 2 servings in already, and it's not even lunchtime. Then for lunch, I have, let's say, some wild-caught salmon steamed on a bed of greens. So I'm up to 4 servings already. Then in the afternoon, I have an apple with some peanut butter that I grind at the health food store. So the only ingredient is peanut butter. Peanut butter shouldn't have sugar and all that oils and junk in it. It should just be peanuts. So now I'm up to 5 servings already. Then for dinner, I have a vegetable and a salad. I'm up to 7. And for dessert that night, I have some local strawberries from Greg's Farm and some whipped cream from Hawthorne Valley Farm. And then I've had 8 servings of vegetables. It is not hard. People just want to make excuses. That's what it comes down to. Everybody wants to make excuses as to why they can't do this. Like exercising. People don't exercise. You know what? Get a dog. There's all these dogs at the shelter that need to be adopted. So you know what? You get a dog, and then you have to walk him throughout the day. Then you have exercise, and you have no excuse. So adopt a shelter dog. They would love to have a good home.
That's true. Plus, the shelter dogs, or any kind of a dog, is going to lower your stress level. Mm-hmm. Having an animal in the house is very important.
It also, in young children in homes with dogs, they have better immune system.
Yeah. So it's good to
get a dog, but only adopt a dog from a shelter. Don't buy a purebred or a puppy dog from the store. Go to the shelter, the Saugerties Animal Shelter. They have lots of dogs and cats that want a home.
They really do. And they've got some good ones over there.
Exactly.
Oh man, I don't dare go near that place. I've already got 3 dogs and 3 cats. You guys sell pet food over at the Woodstock Apothecary.
Yep.
How did that come about?
Well, we have a compounding business in Saugerties. Neil has at the Village Apothecary, which he co-owns. And a lot of animals would come in with health problems. And just like with people, most of the health problems are diet related. So this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, but a cat is an obligate carnivore. That is the technical term for a feline. Obligate carnivore. They are carnivores. And yet, what do we feed a cat? Kibble. In order to make kibble, it doesn't matter what brand, whether you get it from fancy pet stores, PetSmart, or the grocery store. The minimum amount of starch that goes into making kibble is 40%. So you are feeding a carnivore 40% starch. There's going to be breakdowns there. Now, there's always going to be, just like there's always going to be that guy that ate sausage and smoked cigars his whole life and lived to be 300 years old. There's always going to be pets that are fine. But for the most part, we have breakdowns. We have, across all species and types of cats, the same breakdowns. That can only come from diet. So in addition to 40% starch, we then pack these foods full of whole grains and vegetables. For you or I, that's great. A cat is not a person. You should treat a cat like your family. Love it, take care of it, get it regular checkups, get the rabies shot, yada, yada. But he needs a different diet. On pet food packages, this drives me nuts. We see pictures of vegetables and whole grains. They're advertising to you. What does a cat need?
Cat needs meat.
But not just meat, organ meats.
Yeah.
A cat just fed muscle meat will develop lots of joint problems. It needs organ meats, it needs fat, and it needs bones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a cat needs. The same thing with a dog. People say that, oh, well, dogs can eat some vegetables, yada, yada. The technical term for a dog is facultative carnivore. It means in times of starvation, they can eat some grains and things like that. Hunters, the first domesticated animals, were fed millet in times of starvation. And they were very sickly and couldn't hunt, but they survived until hunting time when they could feed them meat again. Dogs need meat, organs, bones, things like that. Same thing. But our pet foods are all starch and vegetables. Dogs do not produce the enzyme cellulase. They cannot break down fruit and vegetable matter. It is physically impossible for them. Their gut is too short, and they don't produce the enzyme cellulose. So you have a lot of bowel issues with dogs. You have skin problems. You have inflammatory conditions. You have joint conditions. A lot of big dogs, German Shepherds, Labradors, people think, oh, they have to develop hip dysplasia. They all have hip dysplasia. Not true. What happens is, in months 9 through 12, which are the most important in a large breed dog's life, they are fed too much carbohydrate. This causes them to grow too fast, and then they develop hip dysplasia because they are given carbohydrate when they need tissue-building nutrients, which can only be found in animal protein.
Right. They have to eat meat.
But they need organs, bones, and fat just as importantly.
Yes.
And so you can make a healthy homemade diet, but a lot of people don't want to cook for their dog or don't want to do raw, and that's fine. But then if you're going to buy commercial food, it has to be species appropriate. And that's very, very important. So species appropriate food should have supplemental fat like lard and sunflower oil. Things that maybe you or I shouldn't eat a lot, but again, this is a dog and we have to remember that. So dog food should be disgusting to us, to be frank. And a dog food should have a lot of organ meat, it should have bone meal, and it should have muscle meat. And that's what pet food should have. It shouldn't have fruits or vegetables. That's on the package for me or you. Plus, and it shouldn't be kibble. There is no good kibble on the market. Zero. Not any company. It's heated to a high temperature. A dog and cat's jaw is not set up for chewing. There's that myth that kibble cleans the teeth. It does not. It leaves sugar on the teeth. If you ate a bunch of sugar all the time and never brush your teeth, you would develop the tooth and gum problems that dogs and cats get. Kibble does not clean the teeth. It causes teeth and gum problems. So these are all things we have to remember. Again, it doesn't have to be pet food from my pharmacy, but the ingredients should reflect a species-appropriate diet. Sure, in the wild, a wolf will eat a blueberry or a little bit of something in an animal's stomach, but that represents less than 5% of the diet. What we're feeding our animals is 40, 50, 60, 70% starch. And that can't be. That is why we have so many health problems in dogs. Same way we have so many health problems in people. We eat bad. And we don't exercise our dogs because we're too lazy to go for a walk, so we don't take the dog for a walk. So we need to start taking responsibility.
And taking the dog for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe having a couple of dogs and taking it for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of dog food do you sell at Woodstock?
So we sell Abity Pet Food. It's actually manufactured in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's like we just talked about, meat, bones, organs, things like that. That's all it is. And they have to add a certain amount of vitamins because the AAFCO or something requires it.
Well, now does it come in boxes or bags or
Well,
cans?
it comes raw, canned, granular, and kibble. We do not recommend kibble because there is no good kibble. Even the company admits that is their worst product because it's a minimum of, it's 40% starch. You can't feed an animal 40% starch, a carnivore, and expect good things to happen. So they fully admit that, but it comes, raw food. The thing that with raw food that people need to realize is dogs can be fed and cats can be fed raw food, but you cannot switch to a food that has a massive amount of carbohydrates right over to a raw food. The dog will get intestinal parasites because what happens, all of this time on hard carbohydrate, high fiber food, the pH of their intestines go up and they have a lot of inflammation and mucus and things like that. And then worms will start to live in there from the uncooked meat. So you have to switch a dog from a hard carbohydrate food to a proper protein-based cooked food, canned or granular. And after a couple months on that, then if you want to do raw, it's fine. But if you just do that straight transition, your dog's going to end up with worms. So, but so canned, raw, and granular. Granular is really cool. It looks like brown sugar. You mix it with room temperature water, chicken broth, and they eat it like a paste.
And you like that?
Yeah, and that's actually the healthiest because it's never all the ingredients are cooked separately. The essential fats that the dog needs are added in at the end, so they're never heated like with kibble and canned food. So that's actually the best choice.
So you have dog food as well as cat food over there?
Same forms: raw, granular, kibble, canned.
And do you ever get any clients that say my pet didn't like it?
Yep. So I'll explain that to you. So let's say you had a kid and all he ate was junk food. He's not just going to start eating healthy. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, we have cats that come in and they say, oh, he's got skin problems or he gets urinary tract problems all the time. Yeah, because you're feeding a carnivore all starch. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
And people are like, my dog likes vegetables. Yeah, kids like candy. It doesn't mean that it's good for the dog.
Right.
Dogs, and I can't emphasize enough, do not produce the enzyme cellulase. That is just a biological fact. So in order to break down fruits and vegetables, we need to produce the enzyme cellulase. It's just a fact. We also have to have a certain length of intestine in order to allow for fermentation of that food. And we also have to have the proper jaw. Like humans have canine teeth and molars for chewing and crushing. Dogs and cats just have canines. They are not meant for chewing. They are meant for ripping flesh and swallowing.
Right.
And so we have to take that into account when we feed them. The healthy, there's an awesome website called Raw Dog Sushi. They will ship you all kinds of cool raw foods for your dog. I don't sell them, but I'll gladly talk about it. Another great company. They do dog food right. If you want to do raw food, they do it really, really well.
Where are they located?
Oh boy, I think Texas maybe? I hate to say that on the air in Woodstock, but I think they're in Texas.
Not local. Well, that's okay.
But again, there's a local company that does it well too called Fleischers in Kingston. They make raw meat dog food. And they're located in Kingston, New York. Fleischers, they're a butcher shop on Wall Street in Uptown Kingston, and they make real dog food that's really good. They make ground up meats and organs and bones for dogs. It's great food, and that's a local company.
One of the problems that I have with feeding my dogs is the fact that they are teeny dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they are Chihuahuas, and they weigh like 5 and 6 pounds, which is fine. That's good for my age bracket because I can pick them up, etc., etc. But they can't do the bones. Half the time they can't do the kibble.
They shouldn't be doing the kibble.
Right. They get kibble as like a treat. I have it available in a dish, but it's not their and they don't like it anyway, and they can't chew it anyway because their jaws aren't strong enough. So but to offer them like a bone, like dogs get bones and chewy things, like they get pig's ears and stuff.
Pig ears are great.
My dogs can't chew them;
Yeah.
they're too big. The pig's ears are as big as a dog.
So you would want a food that incorporates that ground up bone in there, so
Yes.
that they're getting it, but you don't have to worry about it.
Right. And that's what happens with the abadi. It's
ground up in there.
And then you have a dry powder that I could put out.
Yeah, it looks like brown sugar, but you mix it with room temperature water or unsalted chicken or chicken broth until it forms a paste, and then they eat it like that. And like in little dogs, toy dogs especially get those tooth and gum problems really bad. Within 6 weeks on this, it clears up the tooth and gum problems.
Wow.
Because you're eliminating that sugar left on the gums. I always laugh when people are like, I have to brush my dog's teeth. No, you don't. You have to feed them better.
Yeah. Well, and the little dogs, like Yorkies and the little Chihuahuas and things, their teeth are just in really bad shape because they are so teeny.
No, it's because of the food. There's
Right.
nothing. But if you get rid of the kibble out of the diet, those teeth and gum problems go away.
Yeah.
That's what people need to. It's a completely man-made problem. In addition to us breeding those dogs
So
into
teeny.
such problems.
Yeah.
They have other bulldogs have breathing problems and things
Yes.
like that. So in addition to that, we have the breeding problems. But most of the dogs, just like most of the people problems, are diet related.
Well, too, also, animals have a tendency to absorb the stress that humans, and humans right now are so stressed. So the dogs are all stressed out, and the cats are all stressed out, and they're picking up a lot of this from the humans. So if a person is really stressed out, as most people are, What kind of things should you eat? What kind of vitamins should you take?
So foods that are good for stress, have a piece of chocolate. Have some good, nice, dark chocolate. We have lots of chocolatiers in the Hudson Valley that make wonderful chocolate. Have a piece of chocolate. Sit down, look at funny cat pictures, read on the internet. Do something that makes you laugh. Take a walk in the woods by the water with your dog. Those are things that are restart. Have a nice glass of lemonade and sit down and relax. Nobody takes breaks. Our bodies are in a cycle that goes up and down throughout the day. In America, we just push through. You got to take little breaks here and there. That's very, very important. Again, we have to move from a society that's what can I take to what can I do? And we have to move more in that direction. Yes, there are certain vitamins and supplements that can help, but we need to get the other stuff down first. So what can I do to improve my life? That's what people need to ask themselves. And it's way more than supplements.
It's, first of all, facing up to your lifestyle situation.
Taking responsibility.
You know, I've written this book about reflexology, and one of the last paragraphs in this book talks about the top 5 diseases. And these top 5 diseases that I discuss all have the same risk factors. And the risk factors are high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sedentary lifestyle, on and on. They're all the same thing. It's like you can live your life this way, and then, you know, the question is, are you going to come down with cancer? You're going to come down with heart disease? You're going to come down with diabetes? You're going to, it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
You know, and so people, and cancer is, it's rampant. Diabetes is just out of sight.
And type 2 diabetes is something we ate our way to, literally. We are the most underfed, malnourished people in the world.
Yeah.
We are way overfed, and we are malnourished because all we're eating is processed food, and we've all recently switched to gluten-free, which if you're celiac, you have a legitimate reason to go gluten-free. But a lot of people are going gluten-free because it's a fad. But let's look at what they're buying. They're buying crackers that are just white rice flour. So just like they're just changing out their processed foods that they're getting. They're not any healthier. For example, the healthiest gluten-free foods have always been gluten-free. Vegetables, beans, good quality protein. They've always been gluten-free. So this whole fad is completely ridiculous. These are just corporations that want to make money off people's fears.
And gluten-free is not cheap.
No, but both beans out of the health food store bin are cheap. Vegetables from the farmer's market are cheap. Eggs from Snyder's Farm are cheap. So people are making a choice to spend more on crap, on junk food. Gluten-free bread is no healthier than wheat-free, than regular bread. And so that we're completely focused on the wrong thing. We're not asking the question, is this real? Is this real food? Is the food I buy truly sustainable? You know, these are the questions we need to be asking, not is this gluten-free, is this vegan, is this paleo, is this, I don't know, whatever the next diet is going to be. We need to be asking the right questions. Right now we're asking completely wrong questions.
What do you think is going to be the next diet? Have we seen the beginning of it?
Not really. Gluten-free, I think, has a few more years. These fads usually last a few years. For people with celiac, gluten-free needs to stay around because they truly need it. But the fad side of it, I mean, every crazy practitioner diagnosed someone with either candida or gluten allergy or something ridiculous because they want to get on that bandwagon.
Right.
And so the only way to truly be diagnosed with celiac is you go to the doctor, they do a test, either you have celiac or you don't have celiac. Now there are some people that might be sensitive to it. You know, there's kind of that gray area that they're establishing new tests for right now. But in general, it's just everybody wants to be special. We all want to think we're special and unique, but in reality, we all operate on the same basic parameters. Our bodies pretty much work in the same way. Sure, we might have different allergies and things like that, but we all want to be part of something. And these fad things jump on that. We all want to be a part of something. They're more like religion than diet plans. We just want to be a part of it because we want to have a group of people that tell us what we want to hear, and then we want to argue with this group over here.
Let me ask you something. There are diseases out there. There's a couple of diseases that come to mind for me, because as a reflexologist, I've been grappling with them for a long time. Fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome.
So they're a cluster of symptoms. A lot of times when the doctor can't figure out what's wrong with someone, they diagnose them with fibromyalgia. So a lot of people say they have fibromyalgia, but they have an underlying condition that has not gotten diagnosed, and that's a problem. So instead of diagnosing them with fibromyalgia, they should have been referred to specialists. And so there's underlying conditions that are not being diagnosed: chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Most of the time, they are underlying undiagnosed conditions. And then sometimes, and this is going to offend some people, it's these people need someone to talk to. They need a psychologist. Not always, but some people need a psychologist, and some people have an undiagnosed illness. And the tough part from the doctor is these people that truly have depression or anxiety or psychological disorder, the doctor doesn't want to offend them and tell them that and be upfront and say, hey, you need a psychologist. You need someone to talk to. And then the other part of the time, sometimes it's a cluster of symptoms that they can't really figure out, and so they give them fibromyalgia.
Also, there's not that much time in the doctor's office.
Yep,
2
and
or
that's
3
a
minutes
problem.
max,
And that's insurance companies. That's
Yeah.
not the doctor's fault.
Right.
It's insurance companies. And what drives me nuts is people that come into the pharmacy and they complain that the doctor gave them 3 medications. The doctor gave you your diabetes medication, your high blood pressure, and your cholesterol medication because you refuse to exercise and you refuse to change the way you eat. Stop blaming the doctor and take control of your health. The doctor makes the same amount whether he gives you 12 prescriptions or 0 prescriptions.
Right.
And people say, oh, they take money, blah. Yeah, in rare cases. But I can tell you that the people at Maverick Family Health are not going on cruises and getting paid by pharmaceutical companies to recommend drugs. 90 to 95% of the drugs that are prescribed are generic. They're not by some big conglomerate. They're not Pfizer's brand name medication, yada, yada. So to blame the doctor and say they're out to make money drives me up the wall. They get paid the same for your visit, whether they give people 12 drugs or no drugs. So stop blaming the doctor and take responsibility. I don't care who I offend by saying that,
Yeah.
but it's the truth.
Yeah, and exercise, walk, move, eat less.
Get a dog.
Yeah, get a dog. That's true. That's really very
That's
important. And I meet people all the time who say to me, well, I used to have a pet and then the pet died and now my significant other doesn't want me to have another pet. And you can tell they really miss this pet.
Yeah.
And they need to have this pet. We're down to just a couple minutes now.
Okay, so vitamins. Well, I keep avoiding that topic. So a couple things. I'll go rapid fire here. The government is not trying to take away your vitamins. The government in 2008 only inspected 8 supplement companies. In 2012, thanks to Obama, and this is a good thing, so far they have inspected over 130 vitamin companies. And they are releasing letters saying they are aghast and disgusted at what they are finding. This is an unregulated industry and it needs to be regulated. It needs to guarantee that when it says 500 milligrams of something, you're getting 500 milligrams. It needs to be guaranteed that what's in the bottle, the herb on the label, is the herb on the label. It needs to be guaranteed that they're free of contaminants like lead and heavy metals and things like that. So the government isn't trying to take away your vitamins. The number 1 seller of vitamins in the world is Pfizer. And so I'll say that again. The number 1 seller of vitamins in the world is Pfizer. Emergency, which is everyone's favorite vitamin C packet, is owned by Pfizer. So people need to be aware. So pharmaceutical companies make so much money off vitamins, and no one is taking away the vitamins. When these scare tactics come out, it is because these companies don't want to properly manufacture supplements. They don't want to put the time into testing raw materials and making them properly. So that's that. The second thing is when you buy supplements, they should be actual whole foods. Taking ascorbic acid made from corn syrup in China is not the same thing as an orange concentrate. So you need authentically whole food vitamins. There are 3 big companies that claim that they are whole food, and no food goes in the factory. No food goes into manufacturing product. What they do is they take synthetic vitamins and force them into yeast. And so you just have a yeast-rich in vitamin C. That is not a whole food. That is not the benefits of broccoli. There's very few companies left that actually make true whole food vitamins. Nutriplex Formulas, Pure Planet, Amazing Grass. These are companies that actually make food products. They're basically the only ones left. So you want real, true food concentrates. Your vitamins should just be a list of foods. if they're listing out numbers and things like that, you're getting a synthetic vitamin. Natural vitamin E, which everybody loves, is made from genetically modified soybean oil. And over 99% of the vitamin E that's natural, that's sold, comes from one corporation, Archer Daniels Midland. So these are not what you think they are. You want some vitamin E? Eat some wheat germ. Or if you have to take the pill, take wheat germ oil pills. Yeah, your food should be food, and if you're going to take vitamins, it should also be food, not synthetic chemicals. I mean, on one hand, you go into these like natural food stores and like bioorganic dairy products and organic oats, and on the way out, please take these B vitamins made from petrochemicals. That is completely ridiculous. And the other thing is agave. Agave is worse than high fructose corn syrup. Stop thinking it's health food. I had to get that in. It is not they're not just taking syrup out of a cactus and putting it in a bottle. It's made the same way high fructose corn syrup is, except it's using chemicals to convert the starch into fructose. They're using enzymes. It is 66 to 90% fructose. High fructose corn syrup is 55% fructose. So agave is actually worse than high fructose corn syrup. And that they shove it in all these products and make us think it's healthy. A healthy sweetener is maple syrup. We can get that from our local farmers. It has almost no fructose in it.
So if a person wants to know if what they're taking is okay, can they bring their vitamins and make an appointment and talk to you?
Sure, they can stop in at any time, and we'll be honest. We do tough love at the pharmacy. We don't sugarcoat things. Sometimes you're not going to like what we have to say, but we're going to say it anyway because we're always going to be honest with you. You don't have to come back, but we're going to give you the honest information whether you want to hear it or not. And people get upset not because of what we're telling them, but because we challenge their beliefs. And people build fake facts around their beliefs to support them. So we're going to tell you things you don't want to hear, but it's because we're looking out for you. I don't care if you don't buy anything from me, but I'm going to give you the information anyway.
That's important. Did I hear you say we're out of time?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for
are
having me.
delightful. It was great. Ellen, it was fabulous.
It is.
Yeah.
So are you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about me, but this
You
was...
were wonderful.
Oh, no. Oh, no. All I did was ask the questions, but it was really good. Tough love.
Tough love, that's what it's
Come to
about.
Woodstock Apothecary and get tough love. That is fabulous.
It is like 800 degrees in here.
Yes, it is. She cut off the air conditioner because
Oh
of
my-
the heat. Yeah, we're about to melt. Oh man, Ellen, this was a great show.
I wanted it to be more, I'm sorry I kept